What's up? I'm Angie, and you are listening to Podcast That Pays, the podcast for online business owners who want to grow their business and sell their offers using podcasting. If you like no fluff, tell it like it is advice from a marketing-loving podcast agency owner, you are in the right place. So glad you're here. Let's dive in. Okay, so in this episode, I want to talk about one of the most unexpected things I had to deal with moving from just coaching people and consulting people and doing some courses and trainings on podcasting to actually producing podcasts. The most unexpected thing is that people actually have blocks around getting more visible and vulnerable and actually sitting down to record a podcast. Now, I have no block. I have no blockages around saying what I want. If you follow me on Instagram, you know that I am pretty open. I say whatever. People ask me what is my secret to marketing, and I'm like, just say the craziest shit you can think of, and people will love it, and they will follow you, and you will make lots of money. That's the key to marketing well online. Just so you know, seems like the craziest shit I say, the more people love it, right? Like I did, as an example, 2 emails that really stick out to me is the email where I talked about dog shit and how I had to pick up dog shit because my dog likes to go in everyone's yards like 4 times, a little 8-pound chihuahua. She's got to go 4 times. And that email, and that performed really well. And then another email that performed really well is what I talked about and gave the story about how I got catfished. Everyone loved that. Or how my mom got lost in Destin at Crab Island because she wandered away and we literally lost her and she had to be returned to us by the Coast Guard. So if you've been to Crab Island, you know what kind of craziness goes on there. So yeah, we lost our mom there. It was pretty funny. But anyway, I have no blocks around talking and saying stories and telling people what's going on in my life. So when I discovered clients who were so unsure, who were so scared to get visible or say what they know, I was taken aback. I didn't know quite how to handle it. And I realized that some of these life coaching skills that I possess needed to come into play here. All right. So that's why I felt it was important to talk about this, because you might be one of those people, and you might know you're one of those people, or you might not know. And the fear of getting more visible might be the thing that's holding you back, but you just don't know it's holding you back. Hey, if you're listening to this and you're thinking to yourself, I really need to up my podcasting game, or you want to start utilizing your show more for your business to get more leads and sell more offers, then I want you to come over to podcastthatpays.com and check out the Podcast Collab Lab. That's podcastthatpays.com and check out what we're doing over there. I would love you to join us. Okay, back to the show. Okay, so one of the things that there's a couple of different aspects of this. So one being that you just don't think that what you have to say is important. You just don't think it's cool enough. You just don't think people really want to hear it. That's one thing. It's kind of like that whole imposter syndrome thing going in there. And then another part of it is really being afraid to open up or get really vulnerable. That's another part, because maybe what you're talking about is not podcasting. Like, this is not vulnerable. We're not talking about anything vulnerable here. We're just talking about podcasting. But for some people in their work, when they're sharing their story, it does get more personal than what mine needs to be, right? And so that feels very vulnerable for people, and it feels hard for them to come out of their shell and say it and be bold with it. And when I work with people, I want them to get bold. And I literally call it Donald Trump marketing when we're mapping out someone's podcast. And I'm like, okay, now we're going to the Donald Trump marketing. Like, what are we going to say that's going to piss people off? Like, how can we piss people off today? How are we standing up for like being exactly who we are and not giving a shit about anybody else? Like, that's what we switched to. Okay. And sometimes that's really hard for people to get that vulnerable. And I get it. And so that's one aspect of it. And then another aspect of it is actually the visibility piece of like people finding them, of getting them, like putting themselves out there, putting their business out there in a new way, in a way where people can judge them and people can, like it or not like it. People can review it. People can say this sucks, And so it's that fear behind that I just wasn't prepared, or didn't think that I didn't even think about it because it's just not existent for me. And I don't know. People have it. So if you do, you're not alone. I'm just telling you that you are not alone. But what I have to tell you is this. Number one, when we're talking about the feeling like no one will listen, the imposter syndrome, here's what I have to say to you about this. It's that there's always a freshman class. There is always something that that is going to benefit someone else. There's always a person right behind you on the journey that you can be teaching. Does this mean that you have to be at the pinnacle of learning in your journey and be the best and know everything before you share? No. And that's exactly what I'm saying. There's no such thing as being an imposter. You're sharing what you know. If you're sharing what you know, unless you're just straight up not sharing what you know, then hell yeah, you're an imposter and you shouldn't share it. But you don't have to have all these credentials or all these things and that you think you have to be built up to be worthy. You just have to share your experience, because that's what people relate to. People relate to real people and real experiences. They don't care if you are super credentialed and blah, 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 blah. And maybe in some academic circles, they care, but is that who your audience is? Real people care about your experiences. You can share what you learned from your experiences. That's what they care about. And evidence of this is how many people are invested in, right now I am on this like health protocol, and I've been sharing on my Instagram about, how much weight I've lost and the foods that I'm eating. And I'm like, raise your hand if you want me to put you on my close friends list to learn more. And everyone raises their hand to get on my close friends because they want to just see my journey. They want to just see my journey. And have I lost all the weight I want to lose? Nope. Do I feel like, am I an expert in how to lose weight or the body and how to be healthy? No. But I can share my journey and people are interested in that. Okay. So same thing. You don't have to be an expert, but you can share your experience and share your journey and people will be interested. There's always a freshman class. There's always, always, always a freshman class. Now, on to the vulnerability part, okay? Now, I used to say this because when I was a life coach and in my life, we all have a sad story, okay? Like we all have like some really shitty things that have happened to us or some really personal things that, we don't necessarily want to share, or they're harder to share. They're harder to like be vulnerable about them. But what I used to say is that these things that happened in my life were these treasures. I used to think of them as these were treasures because each one of those things, and not saying that this has to be the case, but each one of those things has, happened to me or I experienced. And I feel like, and I still feel very strongly about this, is that those are things that, I'm not saying this is why they happened to me, just to be clear, but those are things now that are my sort of treasure to be able to share with someone else. And it's a treasure because it's almost like I'll be able to give this person a gift. If I can be bold enough and vulnerable enough to share my experience and the thing that I went through, that person can know that they're not alone. That person can feel hope. That person can benefit from what I am saying. And who am I to deny that? Who am I to get in the way of another person's healing or another person's journey or another person's like getting what another person needs from my experience. In my opinion, it's like I need to shout that from the rooftop for those people. And especially if you are a coach that deals in transformation, you should be, it's almost like you're of service. And who are you to deny your service, this deeply valuable thing that you bring to the world? Who are you to deny that to people who need it? Because obviously you have this gift and you've been given this gift to share. And letting your ego get in the way is not a good enough reason to not share it, to not give it. It's such a beautiful thing that you need to pass on. So get out of your own way and think about the person that needs to receive it. Think about the person that needs to hear what you have to say. And focus on that. Focus on that. Not if your podcast is good enough. Not if anybody will want to hear it. It's about trusting that you know. Like, I'm going to trust that because I have this story inside of me, because I have this thing to share, because I have this knowledge, it's meant for me to share. So if it's meant for me to share, that means that there's someone that it's meant to help. That's what that means. And just trusting that and leaning in that and trusting yourself and sharing it. So, your gifts are meant to be shared. Who are you not to share them? That's just selfish. Don't be rude and selfish and not share your gifts. But don't let your ego, don't let you being scared keep you away from getting your podcast out there and helping the people that you need to help. Because yes, I want you to make money and I want you to focus on conversions. But the reason why I started doing this work is to help powerhouse women. I remember it like yesterday, me saying that that's what I wanted to do, is help powerhouse women with the biggest, boldest, most beautiful messages, get that out into the world. And so this has to be part of that. This has to be addressed. Because sometimes when you have this big message and this big mission, it feels hard and scary and hard to get that out in the world, to be vulnerable, to stand up against something or as something or be 100% yourself and let people see it. Feels hard, but that is the work. That's the mission. That's the thing that you are here to do. And so you have to do it. So actual tips. I'll just give you tips on actually getting this done and recording it, right? Would be write out who specifically, maybe there's a client that's in your mind that needs to hear what you have to say. Write it like you're writing out almost a letter to them. Make it to a real person. And get out of your head about, are people going to get this? How do I map out this episode? It's like you're writing a love letter to the person who is in your head who really needs to hear this. If you know the person, look at the picture of them. Say it to them. Say it to that person. And then don't go back and listen to it. Then just press publish and get it out of there. Because you're going to try to perfect it. But just get it out and it's going to impact the people that it's going to impact. Okay, so don't let your ego, don't let you being scared, keep you from doing what you want to do. So the moral of the story is get out of your head. Don't take yourself so seriously. People really aren't paying as much attention to us as we think they are, right? So don't stop taking yourself so seriously. People don't take you that seriously. And stop making it about you. It's not about you. If you're in this trap or you're feeling this, what you need to do is you need to remove you out of the equation and make it about the people who you're here to help, period. And that's how you can get past this and through this and still be able to show up and be vulnerable and be who you really are and share the stuff that you're really meant to share. And I'm super passionate about this, if you can't tell. So I love you. Thank you for listening to this episode. If you're out there showing up, congratulations to you. Like, it's a big deal to show up and share your shit online. It takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of courage to do that, to do it in a podcast, to do it on social media. So hats off to you, because you're doing it already. And if you're scared to do it, stop thinking about you and think about who you're here to impact and the bigger thing you're here to do. Okay? So thanks for being here, and I will see you in the next episode. Hey, if you enjoyed the show, head over to podcastthatpays.com to get started on your way to creating a podcast that pays. And don't forget to follow this show and take a screenshot that you were listening and tag me on Instagram at Angie M. Jordan. I'd love to meet you and show you some love over there. Thank you so much for being here. I love you. Let's get this money.